Lee Miller first achieved recognition as a roaring 20s-era Vogue model and cover girl, and would later serve as muse for some of the 20th century's most renowned artists. But it was her work on the other side of the camera that left an even more powerful legacy. A unique photographer with a very distinct surrealist style, Lee Miller shot memorable portraits featuring many iconic figures of her time, from Marlene Dietrich and Charlie Chaplin to Salvador Dali and her good friend, Pablo Picasso. Later, as a pioneering war correspondent during World War II, she documented some of the most honest and devastating stories of the atrocities of the Nazi regime, up close. After a chance meeting with the publisher Condé Nast in 1927, a then 20-year-old Elizabeth Lee Miller of Poughkeepsie, New York, saw an Art Deco-style version of her face adorn the cover of Vogue magazine. Her cool and natural beauty, captured by some of the most celebrated photographers of the day, helped usher in a new era of modernist fashion. Yet Miller, who learned the basics of photography from her father, had other ambitions, famously saying, "I'd rather take a picture than be one." In 1929, she moved to Paris, where she actively sought out leading photographer Man Ray. She became his model, his lover, and collaborator, and developed a signature solarization technique in which light and dark hues are reversed. The two of them long debated exactly which one of them actually invented the technique, with Lee robustly stating that it was her chance shock at a mouse running over her foot in their darkroom that forced her to abruptly reach for the light switch, flooding light into their developing images, which accidentally created this beautiful, ethereal halo effect. While in Paris, she also worked as a solo photographer, creating her own work. By 1939, she was living in London with British artist and art dealer Roland Penrose, with whom she had fallen wildly in love. Miller began working as a photographer for British Vogue, chronicling the impact of the Blitz on the home front for female readers. She became one of the very few women to earn accreditation as an official war correspondent. After spending so much time in her young life being viewed through a lens, as a now middle-aged woman, she embarked on a courageous voyage to the front line in order to use her lens and her desire to seek the truth, to bear witness and see others. She captured indelible images of the aftermath of D-Day and the liberation of Paris. As one of the very first photographers to enter the concentration camps after the liberation, Lee Miller courageously captured stark, confronting images of what had happened under Hitler's regime and giving us some of the first ever images of the true horrors of the Holocaust. On April 30th, 1945, Miller and her fellow war correspondent David Sherman bribed their way into Hitler's now empty Munich apartment. Having not changed clothes or touched hot water for 6 weeks, Lee and Davy decided it made sense to make use of that fine hot water, and each of them took a bath in Hitler's tub. Lee immediately saw a scoop not to be missed. A now iconic photograph of a naked, posing Lee Miller, taken by Sherman, shows this formidable woman in Hitler's bathtub. Despite Lee Miller's exceptional career, her real story was hidden from view until after her death in 1977. After the war, she never spoke of her wartime experiences and deliberately boxed up and put away her photographs in an effort to forget the atrocities that she'd witnessed. It was finally her son, Anthony Penrose, who was astonished to stumble upon 60,000 negatives and prints of his mother's work in the attic of their family home. Only then did he finally become aware of his mother's extraordinary work. Anthony has embarked on a dedicated mission to preserve and protect his mother's legacy, creating the Lee Miller Archives and facilitating hundreds of exhibitions of her work around the globe. Now, the world can finally appreciate the profound impact of Lee Miller, one of the most vital and innovative photographers and reporters of the 20th century.